Hello everyone, Deadeye here, and we're doing the first episode of something I've been meaning to do for a little while now. I just hadn't found a good time to get into it, but this week seemed like a good time. So tech news, PC gaming news, stuff like that. That's what we're going to be talking today. Headline and quick reactions thereof. Before we begin, I do want to say one thing. I'm not trying to take sides here. I'm trying to add perspectives that online discourse often overlooks when these topics are discussed. All right, these are the headlines for the week ending October 3rd, 2024. Let's start with Epic suing Google, this time roping in Samsung. So, a quick recap. Epic sued Google and Apple in two separate lawsuits back in 2020. They, for the most part, lost the one with Apple and nearly won on every account in the Google one. Now, the issue at stake here in this new lawsuit is that a new feature in Samsung's phones blocks automatically users from installing apps unless they come from one of the authorized stores. Now, my immediate reaction is in this case, it seems like Epic has less of a leg to stand on, mostly because this feature they claim is on by default isn't exactly the case. It is presented to users when setting up a new phone. They can make their choice at that moment. And I imagine most casual users would simply opt in on that as a security measure. Epic also says they believe there's collusion between Google and Samsung over this, but they also say they have no evidence of such. They're simply hoping to discover it in discovery. And they also say they didn't even approach Samsung to ask for whitelisting their store on those devices, so that it would be considered one of the approved sources, and you wouldn't get a pop-up blocking installing from that source. Of course, it's impossible to know how these things will go, but it feels like Epic has less of a leg to stand on in this case. Perhaps it'll simply go into settlement. Next headline is the Switch emulator Ryujinx has been taken down after one of the developers was contacted by Nintendo. Nintendo offered something in an agreement that we don't know the details of, and all we know is that the result is Ryujinx has been generally scrubbed from the internet in an official capacity. Of course, we all want to know what that agreement was. A lot of speculation seems to be that it was simply a bunch of money to go away. That could be the case. We don't know. The agreement could have also simply been, do this and we won't sue you. Now, Ryujinx might have had a better chance of surviving a lawsuit, but lawsuits are expensive, and that might have been simply enough for the people behind Ryujinx. We'll probably never know because that's probably part of the agreement. You don't talk about what's in the agreement. This was a big loss to the emulator community. At the same time, supposedly Nintendo has been sending out copyright strikes against YouTube channels that feature Nintendo emulation. My immediate reaction to this point is that's an unfortunate use of the copyright strike powers in YouTube. Though emulation is legal, showing off content that is copyrighted, it's well within Nintendo's right to take down. I've been doing this YouTube video game thing for a very long time, and it basically exists by the good graces of the companies involved. I can guarantee you that more publishers and right holders would love to take down video game content. They feel it is encroaching on their profits. It's simply the outrage by the community that this would cause that allows this space where we play video games or videos to exist. Overall, I do have one other reaction. A lot of people, of course, are coming to the defense of Ryujinx, and I feel that's fair. One of the things that I think people are ignoring, this is probably not a solely Nintendo action. I have a gut feeling that publishers are putting pressure on Nintendo to also end emulation, as they probably feel that it cuts into their profits. I think people shouldn't ever underestimate the pressure that publishers can exact. Okay, our next headline is some BIOS updates that are improving performance on Ryzen 9000 CPUs. There are two gains here for Zen 5 processors. One of them is related to multi-CCD chips, reducing latency across cores. That's a good plus. And an official and warranted option to increase the TDP of your Ryzen 9000 chip to 105 watts. My reaction is, of course, is that with 9000 series coming out and being generally a disappointment, are these updates going to help? It seems likely, but is anyone going to notice? This is probably going to add to the AMD ages like fine wine myth that kind of perpetuates these discussions. All around, it's good for AMD 9000 users, so update your BIOSes if you can. Continuing on with the AMD news. Recently, people have been finding it difficult to purchase 5800 X3D and 7800 X3D chips in retail at their retail prices. Retailers have been increasing the prices, and retailers have also been showing out of stock. This is of course unfortunate, as both those chips are very, very good. My first reaction is that there have been recent rumors that X3D versions of the 9000 series chips are coming out sooner than expected, as possibly as soon as late October. This, combined with the recent news that these chips are hard to find, really feels like that this is actually artificially squeezing the marketplace by AMD. That's really all there is to really say about this. There are still some X3D versions of chips out there. Some of the lower end ones and some of the higher end ones are coming in at great values now. Speaking of those 9000 series X3D chips, let's move into rumor territory. Supposedly, the multi-CCD versions of the 9000 series X3D chips will actually come with X3D cache on both CCD chiplets. That seems to me almost a necessary upgrade for this generation. I was a little disappointed this didn't happen in 7000 series. Keeping the 3D V-cache on one chiplet was a huge compromise in those two previous generations. At the same time, this will probably come with a price increase at the high end, at the very least. And for the final headline this week, NVIDIA will have a new driver app combining NVIDIA Control Panel and GeForce Experience into one program. The timing of this, we don't know. My immediate reaction is I'm gonna kind of miss Control Panel. It was a little awkward and old and clumsy, but it worked pretty well. That's the way applications used to be for me back in the day, so I generally was okay with it, but I understand it's a bit of a dinosaur to use nowadays. As long as the new app doesn't require an account and works and isn't a performance hog, I'll generally be happy. Alright, that's it for this week's headlines. I do hope you enjoyed this video. Please, I would appreciate some feedback. What did you think of these topics? Were they relevant to you? What do you think of the topics themselves? Please leave comments down below. I'm looking for feedback on this idea. I probably want to do more of them, but it's really going to depend on the response. Okay, I hope you all enjoyed, and well, I do hope to see you all soon. Alright. Bye-bye now.